Sound speeds. And if you're one of the many people interested in the new boom pole offered by Deity, then you're in for a special treat with this episode because I'm going to be evaluating that exact boom pole. But before we get going, full disclosure, Deity did send me this boom pole in exchange for a fair and honest evaluation, and I get to keep it following this evaluation, but I'm not going to allow that to affect my opinion, so you can expect this to be a fair and honest assessment. Deity does a really good job of posting useful specifications for their products on their website, so let's waste no more time and get right into our evaluation. Well, that's pretty. The sun just decided to peek up over here. I guess this is one of the advantages of getting up at 4 a.m. and deciding to find a place to shoot. Okay, we're opening up the Deity boom pole here, and don't want to drop that. No trash in a public park. Okay, so we have our boom pole inside of a case, which is probably never going to see again. Well, actually, it probably will. It's a nice case. Geez, there's a lot of strength to it. It's like PVC pipe or something on the inside there. Okay, let's not get distracted here. Let's look at the boom pole itself. Okay, there's a rattle to it. Is that because it's not locked? It was just because it was not locked. Ooh, nice knuckles. It's got a good feel to it. I never am a fan of having pads like this. Luckily, that can come off. I'm going to leave it on there for right now, though, and we're going to check it out. All right, first thing I notice, carbon fiber feels pretty good. I like the rubber cap off the end. It does come off fairly easily, and there's another cap. All right, what's the purpose of that? Oh, it unscrews. And it looks like you could put some sort of a different type screw into the end, so I guess that might be designed for some sort of a counterweight that they might sell at some point. Maybe, I'm not 100% sure, but you could also use some sort of a screw adapter if you really wanted to. Screw in a 3/8/16 on this side, and then on the other side go to like a 1/4-20 and maybe run a camera off the other end. I mean, it would be completely running this thing backwards, but I mean, I don't really understand the purpose of that unless it was for a counterweight or something, but you do have that option for some purpose, some reason. Kind of weird on a boom pole. Rubber cap is on. Carbon fiber feels nice. Little noisy feeling. Not 100% sure about that. I'm not a fan of anything other than black on the tip. Being that the tip of this boom pole is completely like chrome. It's a high like shine. It's not black. So if it were black, I'd have no issues. Jeez, it just slides. It sounds like it's like metal touching metal almost. Hold on one second. Let me look at the inside of the knuckles. Okay, the screw. This is there's not a whole lot of teeth. No, not teeth. What am I trying to say here? There's not a lot of threads depth to this. Like if you have like a 1/4-20 thread or a 3/8/16, this is a 3/8/16, that means 16 threads per inch versus a microphone stand that would be a 5/8/27. So there's 27 threads per inch. This is probably closer to a 16. No, it's a little bit more than that. It's probably like a 27, but many boom poles, they require a lot of twists for you to do a little bit of work here. And that's not the case at all here. You do a little bit of work, and that means it's probably going to lock really well. Let me see. Let me check the locks. So barely, with a tiniest little bit of a turn right there. And it goes, well, it's a little, I didn't go enough. Okay, fair enough. Very smooth. Going to barely twist. I could probably go less than that. So little twist. Okay, little twist. Locked. Little twist. Sliding. Little twist. Locked. Okay, so barely any twist at all. So like 1/8 of an inch, and it's gonna, 1/8 of a rotation rather, and it's gonna go completely locked and unlocked. Let's go ahead and extend this out. The knuckles. It's one thing if it's like the Max Sound boom pole that when you locked and unlocked the locks, you hear a little bit of a noise. This is not really making a noise, listen. But when you slide the pole, that's pretty noisy. Sun is coming up. I'm going to lens flare the camera. That's beautiful. You can tell that I'm a sound guy here. Let's hope that I don't blow out. Anyway, okay, so the boom pole is extended. Not bad. It's, about 9 feet, something like that. I can extend my arm up to maybe 8.5, so that's probably around 9. Okay, so boom pole is stiff, which is what you would expect. When I wobble it a little bit, it wobbles ever so slightly. Let me just make sure all the locks are locked. Ooh, listen to that. Let's look on the inside of these segment locks. They do lock well. That's a good thing about the Deity boom pole. Let's start with the biggest lock here. Okay, it's because there's plastic on the inside. And there is a non-pressurized chamber. It looks like it goes all the way through. I can see light at the end. Okay, here's one of the things that I'm not overly crazy about is this is a piece of plastic in here. And you see that the lock does not go down any more so than that. So when this goes in here, it's going to come to a lock and a stop right there. So when this is screwed in place, it's going to stop right there, and there's only going to be that amount of the boom pole inside. That means you can't put a whole lot of weight on it. So if I were to put a lot of weight on the end of here, and granted you're not going to normally do that with a short pole anyway, but if I were, it's going to be a lot of weight being held onto just a little bit of the carbon fiber. And I can't see the carbon fiber thickness. Actually, I can. There's a little bitty area right there, and right there you can see that it's probably about the thickness of a K-Tech, maybe about 7/10 of a millimeter, something like that. But it's not holding on to very much of the boom pole itself. So it's like holding on to the entire weight from just right here. And if you do that, it's not giving a whole lot of strength to the whole structure here. If there was more of the boom pole inside, it's going to be holding on to a lot more of this area on the inside of the carbon fiber. So that way it's going to have more to hold on to, and it's going to be stronger and holding on to more of the carbon fiber to support itself. Now, if it's holding on to just a little bitty bit, that's not necessarily an issue as long as you're aware of that. If you're using a light microphone, not an issue. You just run it all the way out, no problem. If you're running something like a heavy wind protection, a Zeppelin, something like that, you're going to want to run it all the way out and then back it off a couple of inches to hold more on the inside of the boom. There's a lot of play in here. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. What it means, though, is that there could be a lot of wobble in this segment. So you can hear that right there. That's also one of the reasons why it's sliding, because as this segment is not really ultimately really smooth and tight into this outer segment here, it is going to, as you go in and out, it's going to touch, this plastic here is going to touch the inside of the carbon fiber, and it's going to slide along that entire thing, as opposed to being more fitted so that way it's more telescoping in and out without touching the sides as much, or with touching the entire sides. Like, for example, in a comparison, the Max Sound boom pole just had soft side Velcro right here, and it slid in and out the entire time, so it was quieter, and it's basically snugging the outer segment here. Ambient does the same thing. With K-Techs, it's a bigger piece, so it grabs more of it on the inside of the carbon fiber, and there's a lot less play because it's like literally I can go up and down just a little bit, and there's a little bit of a movement. I don't know if you can hear that. Not really going to see it either. But there's a little bit of play because the inner diameter here is not the same thickness as the outer diameter on this. So it's a little bit of a difference there, and that's going to cause a little bit of handling noise. This is plastic, and there's a texture to it. A little slight texture, so it's going to make a little bit of noise. But as long as you don't slide and unlock the segment while you're booming, it's not going to be an issue. Now, there is 1, 2, 3, 4 little gaps. So if I can release this, let me see if I can. Can this press up without breaking the pole? No, I see that it's actually, this piece of plastic is locked into the aluminum knuckle here. So I'm not going to be able to remove the compression ring on the inside. Not that it's a big deal. I just wanted to look at it and see what I'm looking at on the inside of here, how it compresses. It looks to me like this fits over the screw, and as you tighten it in there, it compresses an entire plastic ring on the inside that grabs hold of the boom pole. That's one of the reasons why the knuckles lock so well. That and the fact that these threads here are pretty wide. There's not like, 40 little threads per inch. It's probably closer to like 25 or something like that. So the little bit of play inside of the knuckle between the carbon fiber and carbon fiber there is going to make it a little on the noisy side. Let me see, is this one the same way? Yeah, it's the same exact material. There's no play right there in that. So this one here is going to probably be a little bit quieter when you slide and unlock it. Knuckles make a little click sound because it's basically grabbing hold really tight, and that's how it's locking in place. The plastic ring on the inside there that does the compression is grabbing nicely. It's a really solid connection. I mean, if I were to... yeah, it's not going anywhere. It's going good. And you see how quick it is to release. It slides really easily, locks very, very easily. So, I mean, okay, I'm going to extend out a few of them and see. Extend out a few, extend out a few, extend out a few. I'm barely touching it. Okay, knuckles are good. They're nice and strong. That's good. The biggest thing I would say at this point is you cannot do any kind of an internal cable on it, which is not a problem. A lot of discount poles you can't, so you're going to have to externally wrap it. If you try to cable straight through the middle, it would be very awkward. There is a little bitty tiny gap in there. It does go all the way through, so you can see light. I'm seeing all the way through there, light coming from the tip, and that's because of this little bitty opening right here, which is kind of the same kind of end. It almost looks like an ambient style tip, but it's a lot more thick at the end, right over here. The distance between the aluminum piece here and the edge there is a lot thicker. It's a lot smaller on an ambient, but anyway, it's not like it really matters. It's just a different design, and but this is a different color. I prefer the color on the tip to be black. That way it's not going to reflect if you have it in some sort of a reflection. Granted, this is an ENG pole, and so a lot of those kinds of shows you don't really need to nitpick as much things like, reflections in mirrors, because most of the time you're shooting during the day, or if at night, you're just going to go off of a lav mic, so you're not going to be worried about it a whole lot. So far, it feels pretty good. It feels like a pretty good boom pole. It extends out to what, about 8.5, 9 feet, something like that, and it feels pretty solid. Nothing really major that I'm seeing that is overly bad or overly good about it. It's just a bare bones basic boom pole. For the price, it's pretty good. Let's try it with a microphone on and see what it does. All right, so far all I'm doing is running the cable directly out of the microphone, or the shock mount really. That way we can hear the way it's going to sound with, basically, if you had a transmitter at the end or something to that nature, and you were isolating the cable's not going to make any noise as it goes out of this shock mount. So I'm going to swing it around a little bit and listen to the way the boom pole handles. That's the microphone. A little bit of low end transfer noise, but if you use a roll off, it's not going to be an issue. I mean, light touches, taps, barely transferring, but I mean, every boom pole's the same way on that sense. Okay, if your hands stick to the pole at all, it's going to make a little bit of a noise. I don't know if you could hear that very easily. You might want to make sure you're wearing headphones, but if your hand is stopped and it sticks to the pole at all, as you start to release it, that little bit of noise will transfer through to the microphone. Okay. Also, it does not give you a whole lot here to hold on to, but that's, I mean, it's a short boom. So it's the nature of being a short boom, not an issue. If you do really quick swings, you'll feel what feels like creaking on the inside. Just a little tiny bit of creaking right here at the knuckles, and that's probably from where the inside of the outer diameter of this carbon fiber section is touching this one here. Granted, it's run all the way out right now, but it's... There's a lot of handling noise that's transferring through there, truth be known. I'm not even moving my hands. I'm not a fan of foam on my boom poles at all, but I at least tested it with. We're about to test it without. Get your mind out of the gutter. This is a very innocent thing I'm doing here. Cable management, external wrap boom. Not a fan. Okay. Ooh, taking off that foam has introduced a lot more handling noise. You have to be very aware of what your hands are doing, because if they move at all, you're going to be transferring noise straight into your microphone. Listen. Now, granted, your hands may be a little different than mine, and they, I'm sure, are, so it may be better or worse for you. Cable management. This is why I hate externally wrapped boom poles. Hear that? And if you combine an externally wrapped boom with having no headphones on, nightmare. This is why you always need to wear your headphones. Yeah, it's a lot of handling noise in my opinion for a boom pole. Unless you hold your hands really still. Most of the time it's not gonna really be a big issue though, because what you're gonna do with your boom is you're gonna do something like this. You're gonna be bag mixing. Have a bag in front of you. And either, I mean, I hate saying this, but a lot of people do ENG and they'll do this. Or they'll drop it to a shoulder and they'll do that. But there's different ways. I mean, technically, you can do something like this the whole time and bag mix like this. It's awkward and it's annoying, but you can do it. I mean, you lose a lot of control when you go one-handed, even if you have a point off your elbow, but it is an option you have. And notice that the handling noise almost completely goes away when you do something like this. And the reason why is because it's basically a fixed point. Just like if you have your level set in your bag and you're basically extending it out, you're doing this number, it's quiet in your hands as long as your hands don't move. So it's not really that big of a deal as long as you know how to manage it, but that's the same with any boom pole. You don't want to go one-handed with it. Go two-handed with it. 9 foot's a little bit too long. Overall thoughts about the Deity boom pole. I like the knuckles that lock very well. It's a little noisy when you slide in and out, but that's not going to be a big issue as long as you know how to manage it. On the inside here, the inside diameter of the outer sections of the boom pole have to be a little bit tighter, in my opinion, to the outer diameter of the inner sections. And that's gonna reduce some of the handling noise. It's not a huge issue, again, as long as you know how to manage it. And you're not gonna really run into that unless you go all the way out to the end. And that's when you're gonna feel a little bit of play in some of these segments, but mainly if you don't lock them down all the way. If you lock them all the way and lock everything properly, you're not gonna really run into a whole lot of play in the segments. So it's really not an issue at all. I'm just kind of throwing things out there for you to be aware of. Lock every single segment. It's a little bit of wobble. Which segment is it? It's the outer one. Okay, let me try this one. Nope. No. So it's basically the outermost segment. So the one that definitely has the outside diameter, inside diameter mismatch. It's a slight difference, at least on this pole. It may be different for you if you get one of these. But as long as you lock that segment down, it's going to take out a lot of that. So yeah, it's reduced if you lock it down a little bit more than you would normally do so. Not really a big issue. Okay, I'm not 100% sure about over here in this screw thread end. Counterweight maybe. I don't know what you would do with that otherwise. It's just a boom pole. For $200, it seems like it's a pretty decent deal. I like the knuckles. I like the fact that it's a pretty standard carbon fiber. I like the fact that it's carbon fiber. It's very light. It doesn't feel heavy at all. It doesn't feel unbalanced at all. The knuckles are good. I like the fact that it's aluminum, very easy to grab and to maneuver, lock and unlock. Not a bad investment at all if you're looking for a decent boom pole. That's about 9 feet, or what does it say? 2.6 meters, something like that. 2.6 meter long boom pole. So what is that, like 8.5 feet, something like that? I don't know what it is. I'm not a metric guy. But it does go down to a very small little bitty package. So you can easily hide this in your luggage, and I think that's the design of it. It's a little travel pole, no real bells and whistles. It's very basic, but guess what? It works. The only thing that I might say is if the tip does bother you like it does me, then you might want to add some black heat shrink over it and take that the color completely to black, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. It will be quieter if you use the Deity Microphones branded foam piece on the handle, but honestly, I'm not a fan of those things. So this is just going to go and live in here where it's going to be protected very well. So it's a good little travel case. A lot of Deity products do come with travel cases on them. Even their microphones, and their shock mounts don't, but their microphones do. And so pretty much this is in line with the Deity product line. It gives you a branded thing that has their name on it, a nice case. You could probably crush this, step on it accidentally, and it's going to be fine because it seems like it's pretty dense in there. Not that I would recommend doing it, but you could. I am going to kill mosquitoes. I need to start carrying my own bat with me. And I don't mean a baseball bat, I mean the nocturnal flying mammal. Get your mind out of the gutter, people. Personally, I would say that if you're going to use the foam, use it on the leading hand side as opposed to the back side. You can always grab the little bit of rubber right here, the rubber end cap piece, and handle it from the foam as well. That's going to probably give you the quietest, it's going to probably give you the quietest handling right through here. Not going to run into any issues with that. If you want to use it at all, I mean, I would probably test it with and without. I can make it work very easily without at all, and that way my hands could slide in and out if I wanted to, like between lines or something like that. But no, overall, I would say it's a good deal, and if you're in the market for a boom pole, it would serve you well. Little air pressure relief bit on the end. What are you doing flying around, Bee? You may have noticed as I was assessing this boom pole that I was sliding my hands up and down it quite a bit, and that wasn't because I was listening to the transfer noise. Instead, I was listening to the way my hands react with the carbon fiber. Depending on your hands, the strength that you use on it, if you death grip it, if you have a very light touch, if your hands are oilier or drier, everything matters when it comes down to a boom pole. And what I wanted to determine is, was it being a little bit noisier as it transferred through the air into the microphone, not necessarily transferred through the boom pole itself? Was that because of my hands, or was that the boom pole itself? And after thinking about it, I think there was a combination of the two. This boom pole happens to be a little bit one of the more noisy ones with my particular hands. Doesn't mean it's going to be for you, but on my hands, it is. Now, I also think that on the inside of each one of these segments, if you recall, at the very, very end, there's a little piece of plastic, and that's basically the stop that would stop right in here. So when it comes down to a stop right there, there is basically a little piece of plastic right there. That's not going to absorb very much vibration. So if you slide this boom pole all the way out and then you lock it in place, there's going to be a little bit of a mismatch because between the outer diameter of this carbon fiber, where it goes over that plastic, and the inner segment of the inner diameter of this outer segment of the boom pole. And because of that, you're going to have to run the boom pole in just a little bit more if you want it to lock in a little bit more quietly. And it's also not going to dissipate a whole lot of handling noise. So if you happen to have more handling noise on this particular kind of boom pole as it transfers through to your microphone, that's probably going to be because of that plastic on the inside. Now, as it goes with the sliding of your hand on the outside of the boom pole, that is going to transfer through the air to the boom microphone itself. And the main reason is because this is, in my hands at least, when I slide my hands up and down, a little bit more noisy than some other carbon fibers. But hey, you know what? If you lock your hands in place, as I demonstrated, it's not a big deal. So there you have it, my honest assessment of the Deity boom pole. For $200, I think it's a good deal. Thank you for watching this episode of SoundSpeeds. Be sure to tune in the future for more episodes where I evaluate products, whether it's boom poles or not. And of course, as always, I'll bring you sound advice. Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.